Dr. Emily Carter had been a veterinarian for over 2 decades, treating everything from domestic pets to injured wildlife in the sprawling forests of Montana. Her clinic, nestled on the outskirts of town, was known as a safe haven for animals in need. But nothing could have prepared her for the call she received one chilly spring morning. A local park ranger reported that a black bear had given birth to 5 cubs deep in the woods and appeared to be struggling. What made the situation even more unusual was the ranger's cryptic comment. "You're not going to believe this when you see it." Curiosity piqued. Emily packed her medical supplies and set out with the ranger toward the reported location. The journey was arduous, requiring them to hike through dense underbrush and navigate steep inclines slick with melting snow. As they approached the den site, the unmistakable sound of tiny whimpers reached their ears, mingling with the soft growls of protective mother bear. Peering cautiously into the hollowed-out tree trunk where the bear had taken refuge, Emily's breath caught in her throat. There, nestled against the warm body of the exhausted mother, were 5 wriggling cubs. But something about them was profoundly strange. For the cubs looked like typical newborn bears, their fur damp and dark, their eyes still closed as they blindly sought nourishment. However, the 5th cub was unlike anything Emily had ever seen. Its coat shimmered with an ethereal silver hue, almost glowing faintly in the dim light filtering through the trees. Even more astonishing was its size. It was significantly smaller than its siblings, delicate and fragile-looking, yet radiating an otherworldly presence. Emily's mind raced as she tried to process what she was seeing. Was this some kind of genetic anomaly? A rare mutation? Or perhaps something else entirely? She had read accounts of albinism or melanism in bears, but this was different. The silvery fur seemed to pulse gently, as though alive with energy. For a moment, she wondered if exhaustion and stress were playing tricks on her perception. Yet, the longer she stared, the more certain she became. This cub was extraordinary. The mother bear, sensing Emily's presence, let out a low warning growl, her golden eyes narrowing as she positioned herself protectively over her brood. Emily held up her hand slowly, speaking in soothing tones to calm the anxious animal. Bears were notoriously territorial, especially when it came to their young, but this mother seemed unusually wary, almost fearful, not just of Emily, but the peculiar cub itself. It was as though she recognized that her 5th offspring was different. After several tense minutes, Emily managed to gain enough trust to examine the cubs more closely. Using gloved hands, she carefully inspected each one, ensuring they were healthy and free of injury. The 4 normal cubs appeared robust, though slightly underweight due to the harsh winter conditions. But when she turned her attention to the silvery cub, her heart skipped a beat. Beneath its radiant fur, its skin felt unusually warm, almost feverish, yet it showed no signs of distress. Its heartbeat was steady, rhythmic, and oddly melodic, as if synchronized with the rustling leaves outside. What truly baffled Emily, however, was the cub's behavior. While the others squirmed and cried for milk, the silvery cub remained eerily still, its tiny chest rising and falling with slow, deliberate breaths. When Emily gently touched its paw, it emitted a faint hum, vibrating softly against her fingertips. She recoiled instinctively, startled by the sensation. It wasn't painful or threatening. It simply felt alive, as though the cub possessed an intelligence far beyond its days-old existence. The ranger, who had been observing silently from a distance, finally spoke. "I've never seen anything like that in all my years out here," he murmured, his voice tinged with both awe and unease. "Do you think it's natural?" Emily hesitated before answering. "I don't know," she admitted, her scientific training warring with the inexplicable wonder unfolding before her. "But whatever it is, we can't leave it here unprotected. If word gets out about this cub, people will come looking, and not everyone will have good intentions." With great care, Emily devised a plan to transport the entire family back to her clinic. She knew it would be risky. The mother bear might resist, and transporting such a large, wild animal required precision and patience. But leaving them in the wild posed its own dangers. Predators, poachers, and even the elements could threaten their survival. After hours of coaxing and securing the area with tranquilizers, administered sparingly to avoid harming the cubs, Emily successfully loaded the family onto a specially equipped vehicle designed for wildlife rescue. Back at the clinic, Emily set up a secure enclosure large enough to accommodate the mother and her cubs comfortably. Over the next few days, she monitored them closely, running tests on the silvery cub in an attempt to uncover the mystery behind its unique traits. Blood samples revealed nothing conclusive. The cub's DNA matched that of a typical black bear, yet there were anomalies in its cellular structure that defied explanation. Its fur continued to shimmer, casting faint reflections across the walls of the examination room, and its humming persisted whenever anyone came near. As news of the mysterious cub spread among her colleagues, skepticism gave way to fascination. Some suggested it might be a new subspecies, while others speculated about environmental factors or even extraterrestrial influence. Emily dismissed the more outlandish theories, focusing instead on providing the best care possible for family. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling that this cub was special, not just scientifically, but spiritually. There was an aura of serenity around it, a quiet wisdom that transcended its infancy. Meanwhile, the mother bear grew increasingly agitated, pacing restlessly within the enclosure. At first, Emily assumed it was due to confinement, but she soon realized the source of the bear's distress: the silvery cub. Whenever it came near, the mother would retreat, her posture tense and wary. It was as though she sensed something extraordinary and potentially dangerous about her fifth child. Yet, despite her apprehension, she never abandoned it, continuing to nurse and protect it alongside her other cubs. One evening, as Emily sat watching the family through the observation window, she noticed something remarkable. The silvery cub, now slightly larger and more active, began emitting a soft glow that illuminated the entire enclosure. The other cubs stirred, drawn to the light like moths to a flame. They gathered around their sibling, nuzzling it affectionately, their playful antics infused with newfound gentleness. Even the mother bear paused in her pacing, gazing at the scene with an expression that could only be described as reverence. In that moment, Emily understood that this cub was more than just a biological marvel. It was a symbol of hope, resilience, and the boundless mysteries of nature. Whatever secrets it carried, she vowed to protect it, ensuring that its story would inspire generations to come. As days turned into weeks, the silvery cub continued to defy every expectation Emily had as a veterinarian and scientist. Its presence in the clinic became both a source of fascination and unease, not only for Emily but also for the other animals under her care. Birds chirped differently when near an enclosure, their songs taking on an almost melodic quality. Even the domestic dogs housed temporarily at the clinic seemed calmer, their bark softening into gentle whines whenever they caught sight of the glowing cub through the glass walls. It was as though the cub emitted an aura that transcended species, touching something primal yet profound within all living beings. Emily spent countless hours documenting the cub's behavior, meticulously recording every detail in her journal. She noted how its shimmering fur changed hues depending on the time of day, shifting from a pale silver in the morning sunlight to a deep, opalescent blue under the moonlit sky. At night, the cub's glow intensified, casting ethereal patterns across the walls of an enclosure. These patterns weren't random. They formed intricate shapes resembling constellations, swirling and shifting as if telling a story written in starlight. Emily couldn't help but wonder if these celestial designs held some deeper meaning, perhaps tied to ancient myths or forgotten legends. One evening, while reviewing footage from the security cameras installed inside the enclosure, Emily stumbled upon something extraordinary. In the grainy black and white video, the silvery cub appeared to emit faint pulses of light, synchronized with the rhythm of its breathing. But what truly captivated her attention was the reaction of the mother bear and her other cubs. During these moments, the family gathered around the cub in a tight circle, their bodies swaying gently as though participating in some instinctual ritual. The mother bear, who had previously shown signs of apprehension toward her fifth child, now rested her massive head protectively over it, her golden eyes reflecting a mixture of awe and devotion. Determined to understand the phenomenon, Emily reached out to experts in various fields, geneticists, biologists, even astrophysicists, but none could provide a satisfactory explanation. Some suggested the cub's luminosity might be caused by bioluminescent bacteria, similar to those found in certain marine creatures. Others theorized it could be a rare form of mineral absorption, where trace elements in the environment had somehow bonded with its cells. Yet none of these hypotheses accounted for the cub's ability to influence the emotions and behaviors of those around it. The turning point came one stormy night, when lightning illuminated the skies above the clinic. Thunder rumbled ominously, shaking the building to its foundation. Animals throughout the facility grew restless, pacing nervously or huddling together for comfort. Inside the bare enclosure, however, an entirely different scene unfolded. As the first bolt of lightning struck nearby, the silvery cub let out a soft hum, its glow intensifying until it filled the entire space with radiant light. To Emily's astonishment, the storm seemed to calm almost instantly. The rain slowed to a drizzle, the wind subsided, and the thunder faded into silence. Within minutes, the sky cleared, revealing a canopy of stars so vivid it looked like a painting. Shaken yet exhilarated, Emily realized she was witnessing something beyond the realm of conventional science. This cub wasn't just a biological anomaly. It was a conduit for forces far greater than herself. Her thoughts drifted to indigenous folklore she had studied during her college years, tales of spirit animals and guardians of nature who bridged the gap between the physical and spiritual worlds. Could this cub be such a being? A living embodiment of harmony and balance, sent to remind humanity of its connection to the earth? Over the following weeks, Emily began experimenting cautiously with the cub's abilities, hoping to uncover more about its purpose. She introduced small plants into the enclosure, curious to see how they would react. To her amazement, the vegetation thrived in the cub's presence, growing faster and stronger than any plant she had ever seen. Flowers bloomed overnight, their petals shimmering with dew-like droplets that sparkled in the cub's glow. Even the air within the enclosure felt fresher, charged with vitality. Word of the cub's miraculous effects eventually reached the local community, drawing visitors eager to catch a glimpse of the starborn bear, as it came to be called. At first, Emily resisted allowing outsiders access, fearing exploitation or harm. However, she soon recognized the potential for education and inspiration under strict supervision. She permitted select groups, school children, conservationists, and elders from nearby Native American tribes, to observe the cub from a safe distance. Each visitor left profoundly moved, speaking of feelings of peace, clarity, and renewed purpose after encountering the luminous creature. Among those who visited was an elder named Grandmother Willow, a respected figure among the Crow Nation. With her long gray hair braided down her back and eyes that seemed to hold centuries of wisdom, she approached the cub with reverence, kneeling before the enclosure and whispering prayers in her native tongue. Afterward, she shared a story passed down through generations, a prophecy foretelling the arrival of a child of light destined to restore balance to a fractured world. According to legend, this child would appear during times of great turmoil, bringing hope to those willing to listen and learn. Grandmother Willow's words resonated deeply with Emily, reinforcing her belief that the cub's existence was no accident. It was a gift, a reminder of humanity's responsibility to care for the planet and all its inhabitants. Inspired by this revelation, Emily decided to dedicate her life to protecting the cub and spreading its message of unity and healing. She transformed her clinic into a sanctuary not only for injured wildlife, but also for humans seeking solace and guidance. People travel from far and wide to meditate in the cub's presence, finding answers to questions they hadn't known how to ask. Despite the cub's growing fame, Emily remained vigilant, aware of the dangers posed by those who might seek to exploit it. Poachers, collectors, and even government agencies showed interest, prompting her to implement rigorous security measures. She enlisted the help of trusted friends and allies, forming a network of protectors committed to safeguarding the cub's future. Together, they ensured that its story remained untainted by greed or malice. As spring gave way to summer, the cub continued to grow, its powers expanding alongside its body. One afternoon, while playing with its siblings, it accidentally brushed against a fallen tree branch. Instead of snapping under its weight, the brittle wood sprouted fresh green leaves, vibrant and full of life. The mother bear watched silently, her expression unreadable, as if grappling with the implications of her child's abilities. Though she still harbored traces of fear, her actions spoke louder than words. She remained steadfastly protective, shielding the cub from harm at every turn. By autumn, The cub's presence had transformed not only the clinic, but also the surrounding landscape. Wildlife returned to areas once barren, drawn by the rejuvenating energy emanating from the sanctuary. Rivers ran clearer, forests grew denser, and the air carried a sweetness reminiscent of wildflowers. Locals spoke of hearing birdsong at dawn and seeing deer graze peacefully in meadows long abandoned. It was as though the cub's very existence breathed new life into the land, mending wounds inflicted by neglect and destruction. Yet, amidst the beauty and wonder, Emily couldn't ignore the nagging sense that the cub's journey was far from over. There was a restlessness in its movements, a longing in its gaze that hinted at a greater destiny awaiting fulfillment. She often found herself wondering, was the cub meant to stay here forever, or did its path lead elsewhere? And if so, where and why? As winter approached once again, the silvery cub's behavior began to change in subtle yet unmistakable ways. Its once playful demeanor grew more contemplative, its glowing eyes often fixed on the horizon, as if searching for something unseen. The mother bear, too, seemed attuned to this shift, her protective instincts heightened as she paced restlessly around the enclosure. Emily noticed that the cub spent increasing amounts of time gazing at the stars of the skylight above its den, its hums resonating with an almost mournful quality. It was clear that the cub was preparing for something significant. One frosty evening, as snowflakes drifted lazily from the sky, Emily sat by the observation window, watching the family huddle together for warmth. The silvery cub lay nestled against its siblings, but its glow pulsed faintly, casting soft waves of light across the room. Suddenly, it let out a low, melodic hum that reverberated through the walls of the clinic. The sound was unlike anything Emily had heard before, a harmonious blend of tones that seemed to echo not just in her ears, but deep within her soul. The other animals in the facility fell silent, their heads lifting in unison as though drawn to the call. Moments later, the ground beneath them trembled ever so slightly, accompanied by a distant rumble that sounded like thunder, but there were no storm clouds in sight. Startled, Emily rushed outside to investigate, only to witness a breathtaking sight. From the edge of the forest emerged a procession of animals, deer, foxes, wolves, and even a lone mountain lion, all moving in perfect harmony toward the clinic. Their eyes glowed faintly, mirroring the cub's ethereal light, and they carried themselves with an air of reverence, as if summoned by some unseen force. Emily stood frozen, her breath visible in the cold night air, as the animals formed a wide circle around the clinic. They didn't approach aggressively or exhibit any signs of hostility. Instead, they simply waited, their presence imbued with quiet anticipation. Inside the enclosure, the silvery cub rose to its feet, its glow now brighter than ever. The mother bear nudged her other cubs aside, allowing the cub to step forward without obstruction. For the first time since its birth, the cub walked unaided, its tiny paws leaving shimmering imprints in the snow. The realization hit Emily like a tidal wave. The cub wasn't meant to stay here. This gathering of creatures, the celestial hum, the trembling earth, it was all part of a grand farewell. Her heart ached at the thought of losing the cub, but she understood that its destiny lay beyond the confines of the sanctuary. Whatever purpose it served extended far beyond the borders of Montana, perhaps even beyond the boundaries of the known world. Summoning every ounce of courage, Emily opened the enclosure and stepped inside. The mother bear growled softly, her body tense, but she did not intervene. Emily knelt before the cub, tears streaming down her face as she placed a gentle hand on its head. "Go," she whispered, her voice cracking with emotion. "You're needed elsewhere." The cub tilted its head, regarding her with eyes that seemed to hold the wisdom of ages. Then, with a final hum that resonated through the very fabric of existence, it turned and padded toward the open door. The assembled animals parted silently, creating a pathway illuminated by their collective glow. One by one, they followed the cub into the forest, disappearing into the snowy wilderness like spirits vanishing into mist. For hours, Emily remained rooted to the spot, staring after them until the last traces of light faded into the trees. When she finally returned indoors, she found the mother bear lying quietly in the corner of the enclosure, her golden eyes filled with both sorrow and acceptance. The other cub slept peacefully beside her, unaware of the monumental event that had just transpired. The Though the silvery cub was gone, its essence lingered in the air, a palpable reminder of the bond it had forged with all who encountered it. In the days that followed, the sanctuary underwent a transformation. The vibrant energy that had permeated the land during the cub's stay began to wane, replaced by a serene stillness. Yet, the changes it had wrought remained indelible. Rivers continued to flow clear, forests thrived, and wildlife flourished. Locals spoke of feeling a renewed sense of connection to the natural world, inspired by the legacy of the starborn bear. Even those who had never seen the cub firsthand felt its influence, describing dreams of glowing constellations and melodies that echoed in their hearts long after waking. Emily dedicated herself to preserving the cub's story, sharing it with anyone willing to listen. She wrote books, gave lectures, and collaborated with conservationists worldwide to promote environmental stewardship. Her message was simple yet profound. Humanity's survival depended on recognizing its interconnectedness with nature. The cub had been a living testament to this truth, a beacon of hope in a fractured world. Years passed, and though the silvery cub never returned, its memory endured. People reported sightings of glowing figures in the woods, fleeting glimpses of starlight moving among the trees. Some claimed to hear its hum on quiet nights, a soothing lullaby carried by the wind. Others swore they saw constellations rearrange themselves in the sky, forming patterns reminiscent of the cub's radiant glow. Whether these accounts were fact or folklore mattered little. They kept the spirit of the cub alive, inspiring countless generations to cherish and protect the earth. On the anniversary of the cub's departure, Emily ventured into the forest alone, carrying a lantern and a bouquet of wildflowers. She made her way to the clearing where she had first discovered the mother bear and her cubs, now overgrown with lush vegetation. There, beneath a canopy of stars, she placed the flowers on the ground and whispered a prayer of gratitude. As she turned to leave, a single beam of moonlight pierced through the treetops, illuminating the clearing with silvery hue. For a brief moment, Emily thought she saw the outline of a small, glowing figure standing amidst the shadows. But when she blinked, it was gone. Though the cub's journey had taken it far from her reach, Emily knew it was never truly gone. Its light lived on, not just in the stories she told of the lives it had touched, but in the very essence of the world itself. It was a reminder that miracles exist, hidden in plain sight, waiting to be discovered by those brave enough to believe.